Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we're hearing from Canto 9, Chapter 2, and I think it's uh, text 23 and 24. So,
Yes, Maharaj.
thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Prabhupada. Dista had a son by the name Nabaga. This Nabaga, who was different from the Nabaga described later, became a Vaishya by occupational duty. The son of Nabaga was known as Balandana. The son of Balandana was Vatsapriti, and his son was Pramisu. Pramisu's son was Pramati. Pramati's son was Kanitra. Kanitra's son was Chaksusa, and his son was Vivimsati. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. From Manu, one son became a Kshatriya, another a Brahmana, and another a Vaishya. This confirms the statement by Narada Muni, Yasya ya lakshanam proktam pumsa varna divya anjakam. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:11-35. One should always remember that Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas should never be regarded as members of a caste by birth. A Brahmana may be changed into a Kshatriya, and a Kshatriya into a Brahmana. Similarly, a Brahmana or Kshatriya may be changed into a Vaishya, and a Vaishya into a Brahmana or Kshatriya. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvanyam Maya Sristam Guna Karma Vibhagasa. So, one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya by birth, but by, I'm sorry. So, one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya never by birth, but by quality. There is a great need of Brahmanas. Therefore, in the Krishna consciousness movements, we are trying to train some Brahmanas to guide human society. Because at present, there is a scarcity of Brahmanas. The brain of human society is lost because practically everyone is a Sudra. No one at the present moment can guide the members of society to the proper path by which to achieve perfection in life. Text 25. The son of Vim Masati was Ramba, whose son was the great and religious king Kanin Netra. O king, the son of Kanin Netra was King Karandama. Text 26. From Karandama came a son named Avikshit, and from Avikshit a son named Maruta, who was the emperor. The great mystic Samvarta the son of Angira, engaged Maruta in performing a sacrifice or yajna. Text 27. The sacrificial paraphernalia of King Maruta was extremely beautiful, for everything was made of gold. Indeed, no other sacrifice could compare to his. Text 28. In that sacrifice, King Indra became intoxicated by drinking a large quantity of somarasa. The Brahmanas received ample contributions, and therefore they were satisfied. For that sacrifice, the various demigods who controlled the winds offered foodstuffs, and the Vishvedevas were members of the assembly. Because of the yajna performed by Maruta, everyone was pleased, especially the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Brahmanas are interested in receiving contributions as priests, and Kshatriyas are interested in drinking. All of them, therefore, were satisfied with their different engagements. Text 29. Maruta's son was Dhamma. Dhamma's son was Rajyavardhana. Rajyavardhana's son was Sukriti, and his son was Nara. Text 30. The son of Nara was Kevala, and his son was Dundunman, whose son was Begavan. Begavan's son was Buddha, and Buddha's son was Trinabindu, who became the king of this earth. Text 31. One second. The best of the Apsaras, the highly qualified girl named Alambusa, accepted the similarly qualified Trinabindu as her husband. She gave birth to a few sons and a daughter known as Ilavila. Text 32. After the great saint Vishrava, the master of mystic yoga, received absolute knowledge from his father, he begot in the womb of Ilavila the greatly celebrated son known as Kuvera, the giver of money. Text 33. Trinabindu had three sons named Visala, Sunyabandhu, and Drumaketu. Among these three, Visala created a dynasty and constructed a palace called Vaishali. Text 34. The son of Vishala was known as Hemachandra. His son was Raksha, and his son was Samyama, whose sons were Devaja and Krisasva. The son of Krisasva was Somadatta, who performed the Ashwamedha sacrifices and thus satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, he achieved the most exalted posts, a residence on the planet to which great mystic yogis are elevated. The son of Somadatta was Sumati, whose son was Janamejaya. Um, Janamejaya. All of these kings, appearing in the dynasty of Risala, properly maintained the celebrated position of Trinabindu, excuse me. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the ninth canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Dynasties of the Sons of Manu. Chapter 3, the marriage of Sukanya, and Chayavanu Muni. Sukanya and Chayavanu Muni. This chapter describes the dynasty of the dynasty of Saryati, another son of Manu, and also tells about Sukanya and Revati. Devajna Saryati gave instructions about what to do in the ritualistic ceremony observed in the second day of the yajna of the Agirasyas. One day, Satyati, along with his daughter, known as Sukanya, went to the ashrama of Chayavana Muni. There, Sukanya saw two glowing substances within a hole of earthworms, and by chance she pierced these two glowing substances. As soon as she did this, blood began to ooze from that hole. Consequently, King Saryati and his companions suffered from constipation and inability to pass urine. When the king asked why circumstances had suddenly changed, he found that Sukanya was the cause of this misfortune. Then they all offered prayers to Chayavana Muni just to satisfy him according to his own desire. And Devajna Saryati offered his daughter to Chayavana Muni, who was a very old man. When the heavenly physicians, Ashwini Kumara brothers, once visited Chayavana Muni, excuse me, the Muni requested them to give him back his youth. These two physicians took Chayavana Muni to a particular lake, in which they bathed and regained his full youth. After this, Sukanya could not distinguish her husband. She then surrendered unto Ashwini Kumaras, who were very satisfied with her chastity, and who therefore introduced her again to her husband. Chayavana Muni then engaged King Saryati in performing the Soma Yajna, and gave the Ashwini Kumaras the privilege to drink Soma Rasa. The king of heaven, Lord Indra, became very angry at this, but he could do no harm to Saryati. Henceforth, the Ashwini Kumara physicians were able to share in the Somarasa. Saryati later had three sons named Uttanabarhi, Anartha, and Burisena. Anartha had one son, whose name was Revata. Revata had 100 sons, of whom the eldest was Kakun, Kakudmi. Kakudmi was advised by Lord Brahma to offer his beautiful daughter Revati to Baladeva, who belongs to the Vishnu Tattva category. After doing this, Kakudmi retired from family life and entered the forest of Badrikashrama. Badrik, Badrik Ashrama to execute austerities and penances. Text number 1. Sri Sukadev Uvacha. Sri Sukadev Goswami continued, O King Saryati, another son of Manu was a ruler completely aware of Vedic knowledge. He gave instructions about the functions for the second day of the yajna to be performed by the descendants of Angira. Text 2. Saryati had a beautiful lotus-eyed daughter named Sukanya, with whom he went to the forest to see the ashram of Shayavana Muni. While that Sukanya, surrounded by her friends, was collecting various types of fruits from the trees in the forest, she saw within the hole of an earthworm 2 things glowing like luminaries. Those are the eyes of of
Chawana Muni.
what's his name? Sorry, of
Chawana Muni.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. Text 3. While that Sukanya, surrounded by her friends, was collecting various types of fruits from the trees in the forest, she saw within the hole of an earthworm 2 things glowing like luminaries. Text number 4. As if induced by providence, the girl ignorantly pierced those 2 glowworms with a thorn. And when they were pierced, blood began to ooze out of them. Thereupon, all the soldiers of Saryati were immediately obstructed from passing urine and stool. Upon perceiving this, Saryati spoke to his associates in surprise. Text 6. How strange it is that one of us has attempted to do something wrong to Chayavana Muni, the son of Brigu. It certainly appears that someone among us has polluted this ashram. Text number 7. Being very much afraid, the girl, Sukanya, said to her father, I have done something wrong, for I have ignorantly pierced these 2 luminous substances with a thorn. Text 8. After hearing this statement by his daughter, King Saryati was very much afraid. In various ways, he tried to appease Chayavana Muni, for it was he who sat within the hole of the earth. Text 9. King Saryati, being very contemplative and thus understanding Chayavana Muni's purpose, gave his daughter in charity to the sage. Thus, released from danger with great difficulty, he took permission from Chayavana Muni and returned home. He left his daughter. That's the Chayavana. The king, after hearing the statement of his daughter, certainly told the great sage Chayavana Muni everything about how his daughter had ignorantly committed such an offense. The Muni, however, inquired from the king whether the daughter was married. In this way, the king understood the purpose of the great sage Chayavana Muni. Tad Adi Prayam Ajnaya immediately gave the Muni his daughter in charity and escaped the danger of being cursed. Thus, with the permission of the great sage, the king returned home and left his daughter. Chayavana Muni was very irritable, but since Sukanya had gotten him as her husband, she dealt with him carefully according to his mood. Knowing his mind, she performed service to him without being bewildered. Okay. This is an indication of the relationship between husband and wife. A great personality like Chayavana Muni has the temperament of always wanting to be in a superior position. Such a person cannot submit to anyone. Therefore, Chayavana Muni had an irritable temperament. His wife, Sukanya, could understand his attitude, and under the circumstances, she treated him accordingly. If any wife wants to be happy with her husband, she must try to understand her husband's temperament and please him. This is victory for a woman, even in the dealings of Lord Krishna with his different queens. It has been seen that although the queens were the daughters of great kings, they placed themselves before Lord Krishna as his maidservants. However great a woman may be, she must place herself before her husband in this way. That is to say, she must be ready to carry out her husband's orders and please him in all circumstances. I hope a lot of ladies are hearing this. Then her life will be successful. When the wife becomes as irritable as the husband, their life at home is sure to be disturbed or ultimately completely broken. In the modern day, the wife is never submissive, and therefore home life is broken even by slight incidents. Either the wife or the husband may take advantage of the divorce laws. According to the Vedic law, however, there is no such thing as divorce laws, and a woman must be trained to be submissive to the will of her husband. Westerners contend that this is a slave mentality for the wife, but factually it is not. It is the tactic by which a woman can conquer the heart of her husband, however irritable or cruel. However, or cruel he may be in his case. In this case, we clearly see that although Chayavana Muni was not young, but indeed old enough to be Sukanya's grandfather, and was also very irritable, Sukanya, the beautiful young daughter of a king, submitted herself to her old husband and tried to please him in all respects. Thus, she was a faithful and chaste wife. I hope everyone is hearing this, especially the ladies. Text 11. Thereafter, some time having passed, the Aswini Kumara brothers, the heavenly physicians, happened to come to Chayavana Muni's ashram. After offering them respectful obeisances, Chayavana Muni requested them to give him youthful life, for they were able to do so. Purport. I should have wrote that. The heavenly physicians, like the Aswini Kumaras, could give youthful life even to one who was advanced in age. Indeed, great yogis with their mystic powers can even bring a dead body back to life if the structure of the body is in order. In other words, it hasn't become uh, what you would call uh, defective. We have already discussed this in connection with Bali Maharaj's soldiers and their treatment by Shukracharya. Modern medical science has not yet discovered how to bring a dead body back to life or bring youthful energy to an old body. But from these verses, we can understand that such treatment is possible if one is able to take knowledge from the Vedic information. The Ashwini Kumaras were expert in Ayurveda, as was Dhanvantari. In every department of material science, there is a perfection to be achieved. And to achieve it, one must consult the Vedic literature. The highest perfection is to become a devotee of the Lord. To attain this perfection, one must consult Srimad Bhagavatam, which is understood to be the ripe fruit of the Vedic desire tree. Nigama kalpataror kalitam phalam. Okay. Second. Chayavana Muni said, although you are ineligible to drink somarasa and sacrifices, I promise to give you a full pot of it. Kindly arrange beauty and youth for me, because they are attractive to young women. So this dirty old man wants to become youthful to enjoy more sense gratification. Text 13. The great physicians, the Aswini Kumara, were very gladly accepted Chayavana Muni's proposal. Thus they told the Brahmana, just dive into the lake of successful life. One who bathes in this lake has his desires fulfilled. Well, I wonder where that lake is. Text 14. After saying this, Aswini Kumara caught hold of Chayavana Muni, who was an old, diseased invalid with loose skin, white hair, and veins visible all over his body, and all three of them entered the lake. Chayavana Muni was so old that he could not enter the lake alone. Thus, the Aswini Kumara caught hold of his body, and the three of them entered the lake. Text 15. Thereafter, three men with very beautiful bodily features emerged from the lake. They were nicely dressed and decorated with earrings and garlands of lotuses. All of them were of the same standard of beauty. Yes, so now the what is her name? Kanya?
Sukanya.
Sukanya, yeah. She will not be able to understand which one of the three is her husband because they all look the same. Young and very beautiful. Text 16. The chaste and very beautiful Sukanya could not distinguish her husband from the two Ashwini Kumars, for they were equally beautiful. Not understanding who her real husband was, she took shelter of the Ashwini Kumars. Purport. Sukanya could have selected any one of them as her husband, for one could not distinguish among them. But because she was chaste, she took shelter of the Ashwini Kumars so that they could inform her who her actual husband was. A chaste woman will never accept any man other than her husband, even if there is someone equally as handsome and qualified. Okay. The Sukanya is actually a very chaste woman. The Ashwini Kumaras, text 17, the Ashwini Kumaras were very pleased to see Sukanya's chastity and faithfulness. Thus they showed her Chayavanamuni, her husband, and after taking permission from him, they returned to the heavenly planets in their plane. So Chayavanamuni at this point had been rejuvenated, be like a very handsome man and a youthful man. Text 18. Thereafter King Saryati, desiring to perform a sacrifice, went to the residence of Chayavanamuni. There he saw by the side of his daughter a very beautiful young man, as bright as the sun. Okay, so the father is like going to be shocked because he thinks his son is engaged in some kind of illicit activity. After receiving obeisances from his daughter, the king, instead of offering blessings to her, appeared very displeased and spoke as follows. O unchaste girl, what is this that you have desired to do? You have cheated the most respectable husband who is honored by everyone. For I see that because he was old, diseased, and therefore unattractive, you have left his company to accept as your husband this young man, who appears to be a beggar from the street. No, it's Chayavanamuni. Purport. This shows the values of Vedic culture. According to the circumstances, Sukanya had been given a husband who was too old to be compatible with her. Because Chayavanamuni was diseased and very old, he was certainly unfit for the beautiful daughter of King Saryati. Nonetheless, her father expected her to be faithful to her husband. When he suddenly saw that his daughter had accepted someone else, even though the man was young and handsome, he immediately chastised her as asati, unchaste, because he assumed that she had accepted another man in the presence of her husband. According to Vedic culture, even a young woman is given an old husband, but she must respectfully serve him. This is chastity. It is not that because she dislikes her husband, she may give him up and accept another. This is against Vedic culture. According to Vedic culture, a woman must accept the husband given to her by her parents and remain chaste and faithful to him. Therefore, King Saryati was surprised to see a young man by the side of Sukkot. Text 21. Oh, my daughter, who were born in a respectable family, how have you degraded your consciousness in this way? How is it that you are shamelessly maintaining a paramour? You will thus degrade the dynasties of both your father and your husband to hellish life. Purport. It is quite clear that according to the Vedic culture, a woman who accepts a paramour or second husband in the presence of the husband she had married is certainly responsible for the degradation of her father's family and the family of her husband. The rules of Vedic culture in this regard are strictly observed in the respectable families of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, even today. Only the Sudras are degraded in this matter. For a woman of the Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya class to accept another husband in the presence of the husband she has married, or or to file for divorce, or accept a boyfriend or paramour is unacceptable in the Vedic culture. Therefore, King Saryati, who did not know the real facts of Chayavana Muni's transformation, was surprised to see the behavior of his daughter. Yeah, she did not in any way violate the principles of Krishna consciousness, but she let her father has to become convinced that she has not engaged in something illicit. Sukanya, however, being very proud of her chastity, smiled upon hearing the rebukes of her father. She smilingly told him, my dear father, this young man by my side is your actual son-in-law, the great sage Chayavana, who was born in the family of Brigu. Purport. Although the father chastised the daughter, assuming that she had accepted another husband, the daughter knew that she was completely honest and chaste. And therefore she was willing, and therefore she was smiling when she explained that her husband, Chayavana Muni, had now been transformed into a young man. She was very proud of her chastity, and thus she smiled at the talk as she talked with her father. Text 23. Thus Sukanya explained how her husband had received the beautiful body of a young man. When the king heard this, he was very surprised, and in great pleasure he embraced his beloved daughter. Text 24. Chayamana Muni, by his own prowess, enabled King Saryati to perform the Soma Yajna. The Muni offered a full pot of Somarasa to the Ashwini Kumaras although they were unfit to drink. Text 25. King Indra, being perturbed and angry, wanted to kill Chayavana Muni, and therefore he impetuously took up his thunderbolts. But Chayavana Muni, by his powers, paralyzed Indra's arm that held the thunderbolt. Although the Ashwini Kumaras were only physicians and were therefore excluded from drinking somarasa and sacrifices, the demigods agreed to allow them henceforth to drink it. Text 27. King Saryati begot 3 sons, named Uttan Abarhi, Anarta, and Burisena. From Anarti came a son named Revata. O Maharaj Parikshit, subduer of enemies, this Revata constructed a kingdom known as Ushastali in the depths of the ocean. There he lived and ruled such tracts of land as Anarta, etc. He had 100 very nice sons, of whom the eldest was Kakuni. Text 29. Okay, 1 second. I have to fix my pencil. Okay, 1 second. I'm almost finished getting my pencil in place. Yeah. Yeah, all right, we'll start from text 26. Although the Ashwini Kumaras were only physicians and were therefore excluded from drinking somarasa and sacrifices, the demigods agreed to allow them henceforth to drink. Text 27. King Saryati begot 3 sons, named Uttanabarhi, Anarta, and Urisena. From Anarta came a son named Revata. O Maharaj Parikshit, this is text 28. Subduer of enemies, this Revata constructed a kingdom known as Kushantali in the depths of the ocean. There he lived and ruled such tracts of land as Anarta, etc. He had 100 very nice sons, of whom the eldest was Kakudmi. Text 29. Taking his own daughter, Revati, Kakudni went to Lord Brahma in Brahmaloka, which is transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature, and inquired about a husband for her. Purport. It appears that Brahmaloka, the abode of Lord Brahma, is also transcendental above the 3 modes of material nature. Apavritam. Text 30. When Kakudmi arrived there, Lord Brahma was engaged in hearing musical performances by the Gandharvas and had not a moment to talk with him. Therefore, Kakudmi waited And at the end of the musical performances, he offered his obeisances to Lord Brahma, and thus submitted his long-standing desire. After hearing his words, Lord Brahma, who is most powerful, laughed loudly and said to Kukudmi, "O king, all those whom you may have decided within the core of your heart to accept as your son-in-law have passed away in the course of time." Text 32. 27 Chatur Yugas have already passed. Those upon whom you may have decided are now gone, and so are their sons, grandsons, and other descendants. You cannot even hear about their names. Purport. During Lord Brahma's day, 14 manus, or 1,000 Mahayagas, pass away. Brahma informed King Kakudmi that 27 Mahayagas, each consisting of 4 periods, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, had already passed. All the kings and other great personalities born in those yugas had now departed from memory into obscurity. This is the way of time as it moves through past, present, and future. O king, leave here and offer your daughter to Lord Brahma, to Lord Baladeva, who is still present. He is most powerful. Indeed, he is the supreme personality of Godhead, whose plenary portion is Lord Vishnu. Your daughter is fit to be given to him in charity. Okay, well, that's good news. Text 34. Lord Baladeva is the supreme personality of God. One who hears and chants about him is purified, because he is always the well-wisher of all living entities. He has descended with all his paraphernalia to purify the entire world and lessen its burden. When it says lessen this burden, it means to lessen the burden of unholy people in his kingdom. Text 35. Having received this order from Lord Brahma, Kakudmi offered obeisances of king and returned to his own residence. He then saw that his residence was vacant, having been abandoned by his brothers and other relatives who were living in all directions because of fear of such higher living beings as the yakshas. Text 36. Thereafter, the king gave his most beautiful daughter in charity to the supremely powerful Baladeva, and then retired from worldly life and went to Badarik Ashram to please Nara Narayana. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 9th canto, 3rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Marriage of Sukanya and Chayavana Muni. Okay, we still have some time, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
A few minutes. Right?
Yes.
Chapter 4. Harivilas Maharaja offended by Durvasana. This chapter describes the history of Maharaj Nabaga, of his son Nabaga and of Maharaja Ambarisha. The son of Manu was Nabaga, and his son Nabaga lived for many years in the Gurukula. In Nabaga's absence, his brothers did not consider his share of the kingdom, but instead divided the property among themselves. When Nabaga returned home, his brothers bestowed upon him their father as his share. But when Nabaga went to his father and told him about the dealings of the brothers, his father informed him that this was cheating and advised him that for his livelihood he should go to the sacrifice arena and describe 2 mantras to be chanted there. Nabaga executed the order of his father, and thus Angira and other great saintly persons gave him all the money collected in that sacrifice. To test Nabaga, Lord Shiva challenged his claim to the wealth. But when Lord Shiva was satisfied by Nabaga's behavior, the Lord Shiva offered him all the riches. From Nabaga was born Ambarisha, the most powerful and celebrated devotee. Maharaja Ambarisha was the emperor of the entire world, but he considered his opulence temporary. Indeed, knowing that such material opulence is the cause of downfall into conditional life, he was unattracted to this opulence. He engaged his senses and mind in the service of the Lord. This process is called yukta vairagya, or feasible renunciation, which is quite suitable for worship of the Supreme Personality of God. Because Maharaja Ambarisha, as the emperor, was immensely opulent, he performed devotional service with great opulence, and therefore, despite his wealth, he had no attachment to his wife, children, or kingdom. He constantly engaged his senses and mind in the service of the Lord. Therefore, to say nothing of enjoying material opulence, he never desired even liberation. Once Maharaj Ambarisha was worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Vrindavan, observing the vow of Dwadasi. On Dwadasi, the day after Ekadasi, when he was about to break his Ekadasi fast, the great mystic yogi Durvasa appeared in his house and became his guest. Oh, Durvasa is very dangerous, very, very dangerous. King Ambarisha respectfully received Durvasa Muni, and Durvasa Muni, after accepting his invitation to eat there, went to bathe in the Yamuna River at noontime. Because he was absorbed in samadhi, he did not come back very soon. Maharaj Ambarisha, however, upon seeing that the time to break the fast was passing, drank a little water in accordance with the advice of learned brahmanas, just to observe the formality of breaking the fast. Yeah. By mystic power, Durvasa Muni could understand that this had happened, and he was very angry. When he returned, he began to chastise Maharaj Ambarisha. But he was not satisfied, and finally he created from his hair a demon appearing like the fire of death. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is always the protector of his devotee. And to protect Maharaj Ambarisha, he sent his disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, which immediately vanquished the fiery demon and then pursued Durvasa, who was so envious of Maharaj Ambarisha. Durvasa fled to Brahmaloka, Shivaloka, and all other higher planets, but he could not protect himself from the wrath of the Sudarshana Chakra. Finally, he went to the spiritual world and surrendered to Lord Narayana. But Lord Narayana could not excuse a person who had offended a Vaishnava. See, he's so powerful he can go to the spiritual world, but even there, he was not going to be liberated from the sinful thing that he did. To be excused from such an offense, one must submit to the Vaishnava whom he has offended. Very important point. We should heed this point very carefully. If we insult a genuine devotee, we cannot go to other people to ask to be forgiven. We have to go back to the person that we insulted and ask to be forgiven. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarisha and beg his pardon. Text 1. Sukadev Goswami. Okay, I think our time is up. So we'll stop right there. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Anyone has? There are so many important things that have been discussed here. It's just amazing. So our takeaway for today is the problem that Durvasa Muni is dealing with. Durvasa fled to Brahmaloka, Shivaloka, and all other higher planets, but he could not protect himself from the wrath, or meaning anger, of Sudarshana Chakra. Finally, he went to the spiritual world and surrendered to Lord Narayana. Look how powerful he was. Right? Durvasa was very, very powerful. He could go to the spiritual world and surrender to Lord Narayana. But Lord Narayana could not excuse a person who had offended a Vaishnava. Oh my God. Just see how important it is not to offend a Vaishnava. To be excused from such an offense, one must submit to the Vaishnava whom he has offended. So Durvasa did not want to surrender to the person he defended, but there was no way for him to be free of that curse. Therefore, he had to go back to the person he offended. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana So as you see how powerful the Durvasa is. He can go to see Lord Narayana. But the Lord Narayana told him, look, I can't do anything. You got to go back to the person that you offended. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarisha and beg his pardon. Okay, my dear devotees, we got to be very careful as Vaishnavas not to commit nonsensical and very what you would call very bad behavior with genuine Vaishnavas. You'll have to learn to understand that if you abuse a genuine Vaishnava, you can't go to anyone else to get free from the sinful activity. You have to go back to the person, the Vaishnava that you have, uh, like, you have
Offended.
acted badly to, and ask for his mercy to be free from the curse that is going to be that you're going to have to deal with because you've cursed a pure devotee. Now we see the position of a pure devotee.
Right.
Okay, I think we'll stop right there. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa Muni. You see how powerful Durvasa is. He can actually go to Lord Narayana in the spiritual world and ask for, to be pardoned, but Lord Narayana told him, no, I can't do anything for you. You got to go back and ask permission, ask to be free of the offense that you have made to Maharaj Ambarish and beg his pardon. Wow. That is real knowledge. We have to be very, very careful when we commit a offense against a pure devotee. There's no other way to get free of the sinful act than to go back to the pure devotee that we've offended and beg for his mercy. Okay, so that's our lesson for today. To be excused from such an offense, one must submit to the Vaishnava whom he has offended. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarisha and beg his pardon. See, even though this he was able, Durvasa was able to go and see Lord Narayana. But Lord Narayana said, I can't do anything. You have to go to Maharaj Ambarish and beg his pardon. Wow. Just shows how powerful a pure devotee is. Right? And obviously, that Maharaj Ambarish was a genuine pure devotee because the time that Durvasa was running around trying to get free of the Sudarshana Chakra, Ambarish Maharaj was fasting and praying for the welfare of Durvasa Muni because he was a pure devotee. So we'll hear what happens next. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, I have a question. Sometimes like between devotees, there might be a misunderstanding and conflicts might arise. And what if one devotee goes and apologizes to the other devotee, and the other devotee is not ready to forgive you? In that situation, what should one do? And will Krishna forgive us or no? Hare Krishna.
Well, that's a very good question. And there's always a period of becoming, let's say, purified of a sinful activity. So if the person that has been offended is not ready to excuse one, the person who committed the offense should seriously engage in tapasya, and as long as it is necessary to become purified and become forgiven for the sin that they've committed. It might take a long time. It might be a short time. It depends who you have offended. So there's only one way to get rid of sinful activities, committing a sinful activity, is to be forgiven by the person that has been offended. And if that person is not ready to forgive you, then you have to remain very humble and meek and engage in serious devotional service, waiting for the time that that person can have the, let's say, have the desire to forgive you for the sin that you committed. It might be a long time. It might not be a long time. Depends. That just means that we should never do such a thing, to insult a pure devotee of the Lord, because it puts you in a very, very difficult situation. That's why it says here that that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the protector of his devotee. And to protect Maharaj Ambarisha, he sent his disc, the Sudarshana Chakra, which immediately vanquished the fiery demon and then pursued Durvasa, who was so envious of Maharaj Ambarisha. Durvasa fled to the Brahmaloka, Shivaloka, and all other higher planets, but he could not protect himself from the wrath of the Sudarshana Chakra. Finally, he went to the spiritual world and surrendered to Lord Narayana, but Lord Narayana could not excuse a person who had offended a Vaishnava. To be excused from such an offense, meaning the offense of Vaishnava, one must submit to the Vaishnava whom he has offended. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarisha and beg his pardon. This is a very, very important lesson to learn. And before we think that we can offend a genuine Vaishnava, we should think very carefully, understanding that we will be forced to beg the mercy of the Vaishnava if we offend him. So why put yourself in such a terrible situation? It's better never to even come close to offending a pure devotee. So that's our takeaway for today. Otherwise, not the devotee is not going to call the Sudarshan Chakra, but Krishna will, because someone has offended a pure devotee. We have to be extremely different, extremely careful in our behavior with pure devotees. To be excused from such an offense, in other words, it says here, this Durvasa finally, he went to the spiritual world and surrendered to Lord Narayana. But Lord Narayana could not excuse a person who had offended a Vaishnava. To be excused from such an offense, one must submit to the Vaishnava whom he has offended. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarisha and beg his pardon. Wow. We better very, very carefully hear this and not even have any desire to insult a pure devotee, because we will be forced by Krishna to beg pardon of the devotee that has been offended. You don't want to go there. To be excused from such an offense, the offense is offending a pure devotee, one must submit to the Vaishnava who he has offended. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarisha and beg his pardon. That's a very important, let's say, a very important knowledge that we should never offend a pure devotee. Otherwise, we're going to get caught. And there's no way that we're going to get away with it unless we go back to the person that we have offended and beg his or her mercy. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. Yes.
One question, Maharaj.
Yeah.
So in this same example, how do we know the other person is a pure devotee or a neophyte? Like,
Well, we should never offend anyone, whether we're in a neophyte or a pure devotee. It's not our business to go around insulting people. Our business is to be always surrendered to Krishna and not have nasty engagements with other people. It's not our purpose in Krishna consciousness. Our purpose is to always remain meek and humble and respectful of all living entities, even an ant. We should not be envious of an ant and step on it, right? Or frivolously step on one. We should respect all living entities.
but in some cases, Maharaj, if the other person is neophyte, they, out of their false ego, they consider this is an offense, although it's not an offense. So that's the reason I'm asking this question. Like sometimes neophytes think because of their false ego, they feel offended for no reason. So that offense is not the. I mean, even though it's not an offense, in day-to-day dealing, sometimes devotees think, "Oh, I got offended," but even though no one has offended, because of their own impressions or whatever reason. So in such situation, what we should do?
Pray. Just pray to Krishna and don't get involved with that person anymore. That person is willing to accuse you, even though you didn't do anything wrong. And a person like that is dangerous. So you just have to avoid their association. That's if you did not really offend that person. It's that person is angry and wants to make you suffer unnecessarily because you haven't done anything wrong. But because you know you haven't done anything wrong, then you could be very, let's say, determined to chant Hare Krishna and not get involved with a person who accuse you wrongly. You shouldn't try and get vindicated by arguing back and all these things. I understand this person is crazy, so I'll just avoid such a person. I won't try to argue with that person or anything like that. I just pray for that person and continue in my devotional service, even if I have to avoid talking to that person, which is usually better than arguing. Arguing will just make things bigger and worse. So here we see that Durvasa, he could go even to the spiritual world. Look how powerful he was. He went to Brahmaloka, he went to Shivaloka, and to even higher planets. But he could not protect himself from the wrath, meaning the anger of the Sudarshana Chakra. Finally, he went to the spiritual world and surrendered to Lord Narayana. But Lord Narayana could not excuse a person who has offended a Vaishnava. To be excused from such an offense, one must submit to the Vaishnava whom he has offended. There is no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarisha and beg his pardon. We better listen to this and understand what's being said, because if we commit an offense against a genuine devotee, we're in big trouble, very big trouble. And the only way we can get out of that trouble is to beg pardon of the person that we offended. You're not going to get away by saying, I'm never going to accept his pardon. No, you're going to have to. Otherwise, you're going to suffer terribly. The main takeaway here is don't mess with pure devotees. Yeah.
One more question, Maharaj. In this case, Durvasa Muni did on purpose the offense.
Yeah.
But if someone has done some offense unknowingly, like there was no purpose behind it and there was no intent to a pure devotee, even though it's unknowingly. So how to deal with such things? Like it can be small, subtle things as well, not like even words. While dealing with the pure devotee, because sometimes when you're dealing with pure devotee, we may or may not know that unknowingly we are doing something.
Let's put it like this. If the pure devotee chastises you, that means you have received his mercy. If he doesn't chastise you and avoids you, that means that he's extremely angry. He doesn't want to have anything to do with you. which means that you're not excused for the offense that you made. So you have to be very careful, very, very careful, especially with pure devotees, not to offend them in any way. If you do, you can't ask to be, you know, asked to be freed from your offense. But let's say you do it again. And maybe one time, maybe two times. Third time, there's no more excuse. And you'll be ostracized from the Sangha of genuine devotees. They won't have anything to do with you. They have to be very careful.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Best thing is to chant Hare Krishna and not get involved in arguments and different types of difficult situations. We should always keep our life very simple and focus on serving Krishna. All right, we'll stop right there. Obviously, the worst thing you can do is to insult a pure devotee. That's like the worst thing you can do in your life. And it's going to be very difficult to be purified of such a behavior. Okay, Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.
Radha ki